It's 12:38. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Sonora Media with me, Maryam Mkwanda. Our hit list for today is Laura Wagner-Meyer. What started out as a hobby in her spare time has grown into a career for a young, differently abled woman. Laura Wagner-Meyer was born with a congenital neural tube defect, but that has not stopped her from living her life to the fullest. She's become a fashion designer with a strong focus on differently abled or disabled women, and she's our hit list for today, here to share her journey with us. Good day, Laura, and thank you for joining me.
Having me.
All right, Laura, tell us a little bit about yourself. For those who don't know who Laura is, who is Laura Wagner-Meyer? I hope I said
Yes.
it correctly.
Close. It's Wagner-Meyer, but Wagner is a common one that we get, so it's okay. But I grew up in East London in the Eastern Cape, and I had a very happy and somewhat normal childhood. Um, so when I was going into fashion, I really wanted to be able to do that for other people, because I know how unique my experience is. So yeah, growing up, I was a limitless child. I was really happy. I was able to do everything my peers could do, which gave me a lot of confidence to really just be who I am today.
Hmm. Now tell us about your condition, your congenital neural tube defect. What is it exactly, and how has it affected you?
Yes, so it's basically it's a very long terminology, but just to
Mm.
summarize, it's the spinal cord not forming correctly, and because of it, I've got severe kyphoscoliosis. So my spine curves quite severely, and I use crutches to walk. So I was very fortunate that I haven't necessarily had much of a limitation in a sense. You know, I'm using crutches and I'm able to be mobile. So it hasn't really limited me, and I'm quite fortunate as well just to not have any health issues. You know, since the day I was born, we had some operations, and a lot of work had to be done. But since then, I live a pain-free life with no issues at all.
All right, that's amazing. And I do believe that you have a twin sister as well. So was she also born with the defect?
Not at all. So she's completely able-bodied and hadn't experienced any form of a defect. And I think that has also contributed to, I kind of got to live both lives, so to speak.
Well, lucky you. Now, where did your love for fashion come from? Is it something that you've always wanted to do?
Yes, I think I always just had an interest in it, like a natural interest. I would always be flipping through magazines because I wanted to see what celebrities were wearing. I love the idea of pop culture and being able to absorb yourself in trends. So, it's something that was always just there. But obviously, living in a small town, you don't necessarily think that fashion could be a career. Um, so I
Hmm.
really put it out of my mind. Like you said, it was more of a hobby. It was something that I just do in my spare time. But as soon as I realized it could be a career, I immediately applied and started studying towards my BA in fashion, and actually just haven't looked back since.
Now, tell us about the inclusivity brand that you started. It's called Unique, as in you are
Yeah.
unique. Are there any similar brands such as Unique in South Africa?
So Unique was actually my graduate collection for my final year. So it was
Mm-hmm.
a sort of imaginative collection. And so that Unique for me was my starting point on how to figure out how to actually meet the needs of people with disabilities, because I realized that we don't have an adapted clothing line for people with disabilities in not only South Africa, but Africa. The lines that we do see are in the US and the UK. It's not anywhere near us. So I use that as my starting point to kind of interact with people with disabilities and understand what needs need to be met. And I learned a lot from there. And I know, moving forward into my own personal brand, which it is in the development stages at the moment, I'm kind of using everything that I've learned just from that experience to take this forward and be able to really meet the needs.
Now, well, there's a long way that we need to go in the world, especially Africa has a lot of catching up to do. Do you think that big brands should be more inclusive with their ranges, and will this close the gap that we're currently facing at the moment?
Absolutely. I think any attempt to it would be closing the gap and getting a step closer to it. I think the problem now is that people with disabilities aren't being thought of as target demographics. That's just, something that just hasn't worked in our favor. And, fashion has such a pivotal role in influencing and kind of reflecting social change. And I think we can kind of see society's attitude towards people with disabilities, just how fashion portrays us and the current lines that we do see overseas. It's not as appealing as one would have thought. And, we do have a long way to go, but because people are thinking about it and we're creating that awareness, we are getting closer. Definitely.
And now, talking from your own experience, how easy or difficult has it been to find something to wear?
So I think I'm very lucky that it hasn't been too difficult, but it has been quite frustrating. It's
Did you
not
get the
something that I
question,
can.
Laura?
Yes, I did. Can you hear me? Hello? Yeah, sorry. I did hear your question, but it cut off a bit. Do you mind re-asking just so that I can just
Right,
go
I'm currently
re-look?
facing some. I'm currently facing some technical issues here at the moment, and the network keeps on kicking me out. But if you got the question, I didn't get to hear your answer. Can you please repeat it for me?
Yes, I was going to ask if you'd please repeat the question. I lost my train of thought as I was speaking.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Now, speaking from your experience, how difficult or easy has it been to find something to wear? For example, you want to go to a night out, a dinner, or a black tie event. Were you able to easily find something for you?
Yeah, so again, I'm really fortunate that it hasn't been too much of a problem. I'm able to find things, but it is a very frustrating process. It takes a lot of time to be able to find basic items. Like you said, if I decide to go on a night out, it takes a lot of planning to try and figure out what I'm going to wear. Is it going to be flattering? Because the brands that we have are also quite limiting in terms of sizing and fit. So I do have a bit of a challenge when it comes to just finding items that I also feel comfortable in. I'm having to layer a lot of items, for example, just so that I could feel secure and protected in clothing.
Hmm. Now let's go back to your clothing range, your brand, etc. What do you design? What sort of clothing do you make, and what's your favorite fabrics to use? What do you love designing and making?
Yeah, so I think personally I'm very feminine, and ideally I design with a very feminine touch. I think it's something that I find exciting, and I want people to look at this brand and just see beautiful things in front of them. And I want people with disabilities to just feel empowered and really confident in what they're wearing. And yeah, so as we're working through and developing these collections, I'm really putting a lot of thought into other people's personal preferences. We all like different styles and different fabrics and materials. I can't really pinpoint one specific one, but I also have to take into account, people with disabilities where, their skin is involved and they've got to be quite sensitive, and they are sensitive to certain fabrics. So it's a lot of research that's going into it to kind of find that middle ground that works for everyone.
All right, so you'll have to excuse the delay every now and then because of the poor connection. And your brand, because you mentioned that you're very feminine and you love femininity, so that speaks to your brand as well. So the uses of feminine like fabrics, the lace, etc. Is that something that you like using?
Yeah, I definitely. I think again, it depends on the end user. I kind of design with the end user in mind. If they are
Hmm.
sensitive to lace, then unfortunately we have to, avoid that and try and, take it on a case by case basis and adapt the fabrics to the person. So, like I said, I can't necessarily pinpoint very specific fabrics at the moment because each person is quite different.
What does having a disability like congenital neural tube defect taught you about yourself and those around you?
I think it's taught me that I'm really resilient. I think people underestimate resilience as a personal trait. It's something that's quite, it's really peculiar these days. For some reason, people aren't as resilient as what we should be. We kind of just tend to give up at the first hurdle. Whereas I think a lot of people with disabilities are so used to having to overcome barriers on a daily basis. We never give up and we keep pushing. And I think that's something I've definitely learned from my family as well. They've been so supportive and really just encouraging me, and they want to overcome these barriers with me. I've never ever felt that I'm alone in facing these challenges, which I think is, yeah, it's done a lot for me personally as well, and just in terms of my confidence.